morning, friends. It is really good. It's actually really good to be here today. And we can talk about that later, but today I'm actually here. I wasn't supposed to be here, but I am. Thank you to Sarah Woolston who had agreed to step in for me today, and I really, really appreciate that, Sarah. That is so, so sweet. But circumstances changed and I'm here. So we're going to meet today and get to know each other and talk about the things that are on our hearts. So last week we talked a lot about busyness. We talked about that badge of busyness and how the world somehow kind of reveres that. We've talked about different points about it, like it seems to be kind of a sign of intelligence. If we're very, very busy, we've got so much going on and we can't, we can barely breathe, that is that badge that we wear. And we talked about what that can do to us and how we can maybe learn to focus on what we're doing in the moment and appreciate slowing down and enjoying our lives more. And I think it was such a great discussion. I really enjoyed it. If anybody had things they wanted to come in and talk about afterwards, after having a week to think about it or maybe practice it, we could talk about that as we get going here. So any moms have things they want to trade? I just read something, so the word just pops out in the middle of my sentence. That's just how things work over here. One of the moms had suggested last time the phrase jack of all trades but master of none. And we kind of feel like that sometimes, I think, when we get running so fast. I feel like it's like running downhill when your feet are going faster than your body really can carry you, and you face plant. I had that feeling sometimes in the early years. We talked a lot about learning how to nurture yourself, having that time for yourself so that you can be prepared to take care of everybody else. And that's important. I loved that Linnell talked about, as we summed up, that there's no need to get down on ourselves when we're kind of having a difficult time, when something takes us down that way. But if we have a negative experience or something turns out not the way that we planned, that we take that experience as data and then we move forward. And I loved that. I loved that comment. I loved that thought. It's just data that we use as we move forward and figure out how to do it a different way, maybe. So I loved it. Melanie, welcome back. Are you able to share? Did you want to share?
I just sure didn't realize I was still unmuted. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I don't mind at all. None of you have to mute unless it's just a little bit too noisy in your background, which I understand. Happens a lot. Okay, so we have a new week. We have new experiences to share and new thoughts. And we can go anywhere, as you all know. So we're in April. The topic for Mothers University in April is history. And there are so many good things about learning history and having that be a part of your learning, not just for your kids, but what you're learning. Significance of things that happened outside of our time. Great people, great things, hard things, mistakes that were made, things we can learn from them. History is such a blessing to us, being able to look back and learn from those that went before. So I see it as such a positive, and I love that. I love being connected to things of the past through our learning and our experiences. I think that's so good and so important. So anybody have any thoughts to share? Experiences from your week? I'm going to go to Lindsay Bunting if no one comes up, because I want Lindsay to share with us some of the experiences she's having as she's teaching out at Outsiders and bringing Well-Educated Heart pattern of learning into her experiences. So Lindsay, I think you're up because nobody else is jumping in right now.
I'm like, it's just so noisy sometimes around my house.
No,
Laundry is noisy and things. Yes, I'm learning so much at Outsiders, so much about just everything. Like this week, we talked about Rosa Parks. So I naturally had to learn more about Rosa Parks, and that was super fun. And then even in just the actions, things I do, I wanted them all to play a game, and most of them didn't want to. I don't think all this is gonna fit in my laundry. Shoving it in. We were do that. Just shove it in there, it'll wash it, right?
That's right.
So like 2 kids would want to play a game and I'd be like, oh man, like I'm failing at this. And I related it to my own kids because you'll ask your kids, you guys want to read this story? Nobody wants to read the story. And then you start doing it anyway. So I'm like, okay, fine. Only 2 kids wanted to play the game at Outsiders. So we started playing it and we were playing Pit. And I don't know if you guys have played Pit.
Mhm.
It's really fun and it's really exciting. And so as we would play, another kid would leave what they were doing and come over and watch and be like, what is this game? Well, this looks like fun. And they would jump in the next turn. I'd have to add another commodity and then 2 more kids. And I'm like, finally, I'm like, we're maxed out at 8, you guys, nobody else can play. And they all wanted to play. So I just thought we can use that in our homes. Like, even if our kids are like, no, we don't want to do that, just do it anyway. Then they'll come over and be like, ooh, what is this? I want to do that. So I just learn new lessons every day I'm out there. It's just so fun. I don't know. And I can bring them back and it's making me excited to do things like that in my own home again. That I maybe got lax on for a while.
Well, and you've shared with me too that you've taken art out there and
Oh, yeah.
kids that have not been exposed to it before have responded to it in a way that surprised you.
Yeah, I did poetry last month and I kind of assumed that all homeschoolers, whether you do well educated hard or not, like did some sort of poetry. I just thought like that was just kind of a natural part of homeschooling. I had like 1 kid out of I had 4 groups of like 10 to 15 that had done poetry. And he was actually really excited the one day because we did poetry tea time. And he's like, we did poetry tea time this morning at my house. And he was so cute. But the rest of them were like, no, I've never heard of this. Like, I don't know what that is. Like, I just thought like Shel Silverstein, like everybody knows those silly poems and nursery rhymes. I thought for sure they would know nursery
Yeah.
rhymes like Jack and Jill. And then I'd wait for them to finish it. And they're like, and I'm like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
it blew my mind. And so we just did nursery rhymes and it was so much fun because then they could memorize it. So I would do it a couple times and they would get so excited. And then they'd be like, okay, hold on, I want to do it all by myself. Nobody else do it. I'm going to say it all by myself. And they would take turns, saying the whole thing from memory, just a little nursery rhyme, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. It was just, I don't know, it's just so fun.
and
So
what was the age range of those kids?
those ones were like 8 and 9 that I had last month. This
Which
month
is a
I have
lot
all the, like,
older.
10-year-olds. Yeah.
Sure, right, but that's a lot older than most of us would think a child would get excited about nursery rhymes.
Yeah.
So,
Because they didn't show like interest in, their first line of defense is like, oh no, we're not interested in anything you have to say to us. And then, yeah, so if I could get them excited about it, that was a win for me. And they would always get excited. It was so fun.
well, I remember the early years of teaching my children, and mine hadn't been out to school, so they didn't have any preconceived ideas about the things that weren't cool to like. And so they liked everything. They didn't have to drop any of their childhood stuff. They got to still keep enjoying it. And it was fun to watch kids come over and be too cool for that for the first 5 minutes or so. And then be like, "Okay, nobody's watching. Okay." And then dig in and do those activities and have a blast. So we make kids grow up so fast. And then we do the same thing to ourselves. Well, you're a grown up now. And so you need to be the responsible one. So you can't take the day off and go play and have a nature walk and, take your sketchbook and just draw all day. Well, yeah, you can. You
Mhm.
can, you can if you want to. You can play games. You can go run around outside. You can do any of those things. You can go down a rabbit hole. I went down a rabbit hole yesterday with Marie, Marie, who's part of this group, just not able to be here. But she went down this incredible rabbit hole yesterday, and I just followed her, and she was sending me all the things that she was finding and learning about. And we were both just, reading about and watching, and oh my gosh, that's so incredible. Oh, did you know that? I didn't know that. So anyway, it's just so much fun, but we take it away from ourselves and from kids. And you're finding that no, we can have so much fun just going back to these basic, beautiful principles. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I know laughter has been something on my mind since conference, ever since Elder Holland got up and he I mean, conference is such a serious thing, um and I think it feels almost spiritually overwhelming and all these things. And when he got up and made a joke, I was laughing so hard. And then the elder Kieran that followed him, and he made the same, followed him with the joke. And I was just laughing so hard. And I thought, oh, this feels so good. Like it almost made me cry right after, because I thought, oh, that feels so good to laugh. And and I've just been trying to think of ways every day to make myself laugh, because there's something that happens when we do that, and when we find like that little bit of joy that makes us laugh. It, oh my gosh, it's so powerful.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. That's something you'd bring up and feel and notice, and it makes a difference. That's great. Linnell.
I want to add to your thought, Lindsay, and share an experience I had that reinforced this idea that we set the tone for our families. And so I thought of this because if we as moms can turn a situation into something fun or laugh about a serious situation, our children look to us and they will follow whatever reaction we have. And one day this past week, I asked the children to clean up, and we put the Wellerman song on. It's one that we heard. It's a sea shanty during one of these months when we were learning about what is it, like sailors and stuff. So we love the Wellerman, and it's only 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So I've trained them to clean up during that song, and we're done in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is pretty amazing. But because it was playing, another song came after, and I came downstairs and saw that they hadn't finished, and another song was on, and they were all watching the TV. So they had gotten distracted, and so they looked to me to see, is mom going to yell at us? Is she going to scold us? Is she going to, what's she going to do? And they just, I could see that look, like anticipation. How is mom going to react? And in that moment, I chose to dance with them. Like, instead of scolding them, I knew they were expecting me to scold them, like, you guys didn't finish and we have to clean up. And I tricked them by just doing a dance party with them. And we all danced to the next song that was on. And it really lightened the mood. And I felt empowered that I, as a mom, can change the atmosphere, the environment of my children, that they look to me for their expectations. And if I can change my attitude about something and either cause them to laugh or share a joke or dance, then it can lighten the mood. And after that, we cleaned, and it was no problem. And I was able to clean with them.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's so great. And we do have that power. We just forget. You know, when we feel that helplessness when we forget that we can change the whole mood and the feeling. You know, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but if we start out doing something fun or silly or cheerful or, you know, whatever it is, or like Lindsay with this group of kids that had no interest in playing the game, and she's just started playing, and they slowly started coming over and joining and feeling her positivity and her enthusiasm for it. I love that. And I think that's a good thing to remember. We do set the tone for others around us wherever we are, you know, whether we're at home with our children or we're with our spouse or we're in a work environment or with our friends. We really can do that. That whole idea of holding space. Sorry. I'm on a little ship. I can't read my comments. Yeah, I think it's Brooks No who has a wonderful podcast on holding space. It's true. And that's a really good thing to learn about, that we can hold space for another person or for the things going on in a room. Does somebody know enough about that idea of holding space that you feel like you could share a little bit about that? Because it's an interesting concept. It's a really good one. And I'd love to not do all the talking. I know some of you know about it. Anybody for holding space?
I don't know enough about it to explain it really well, but just a second. But just that, like, she explains it in this kind of out there kind of way that, like, we each are putting off like a vibration, whether it's like a tense vibration and I know there's more to it about the holding space part that is really good, or like a calm vibration. Our kids will pick up on that. Like, other people in the room can pick up on that. So if they're starting to feel really agitated and, okay, I'll be right there. So if they're starting to feel that, we can walk into a room feeling very calm, and hold that space for them to match our vibration, our mood, and hold on to that and not match theirs, which is what I tend to do most of the time. I walk in a room and I'm like, what is going on in here? And then we're all frazzled, rather than holding the space, the calm space for them to, for that. And it could be the opposite way too. If we want to get the mood energized and excited and get them laughing, we can have that space and have them match us.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. I just love the very simple idea of that. And we've all experienced it. We just maybe don't, didn't have a definition for a word, to describe it, but we've all experienced it. And I'm just going to share this little added definition here. As space holders, that would be us. If we decide to be space holders, we simply walk alongside those who may merely need our presence, energy, and unconditional support in the service of what they need, allowing them to fall apart if that's what they need without feeling judged, respecting their choices. Sit in the energy of compassion and empathy without being pulled by our ego or pulled into their experience. We are centers. We are anchors. They use this a lot in yoga and meditation, but we can use it in our lives. Yeah, Mary?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to share something. I have had a really hard time with this since I had my I had some postpartum anxiety. And Tommy, will you be quiet for just a second? Sorry, we're in the car and it's on a car drive. But something that I've noticed recently as I've really tried to be able to hold more space and is that in order to do that, we have to, as mothers, find space, and we have to be able to learn how to change our own energy. And like you said, they do it a lot in yoga and meditation. And I've just noticed that if I take the extra time that I have, after the kids go to bed or whatever it is, or before the kids wake up, or any extra space that I have, and I am on my phone, like either reading or looking things up, or then it doesn't re-energize me. It doesn't give me the space that I need to create space and hold space for other people. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I take that time and I, meditate a little bit, take some deep breaths, or, read something really uplifting, and I take that time to just find space in my life. I feel like as moms, it's so easy to get, and kind of what we were talking about last week, but it's so easy to get caught up in all of the things that we have to do. We don't find space for ourselves, and if we don't we can't hold space for other people, and filled our own, regulate our own energies. So
no, I'm really glad you brought that up, because that's kind of the next principle, or really the one that comes before, which is changing our state. And Brooke Snow talks about this, other people talk about this, but the idea is that you can kind of pretend like it's opposite day. If you're having a bad day, you're in a bad moment, you just kind of think, okay, it's opposite day and I'm going to change my state, and so whatever it is that you're feeling, you try to do something different that can help you change where you are. And just things as simple as you're just sitting and maybe like scrolling on your phone. So instead of that, you get up and you go do something. You change where you are. Maybe you're inside, so you go outside. Maybe it's quiet, so you put on music, but you change something about your physical state, either yourself or your actions or your environment, and that can help you get out of where you are right there in the moment. And I've tried that, and it's really pretty successful. Even, I think sometimes it's just the power of suggestion, that's part of it. And then the other thing is that you're aware that you are taking action and trying to make something different. And I think that just helps you to move forward to something more positive. But it helps to learn to have tools that you can use to help in your work, because your work is nurturing others around you. You have to start with yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be empty really, really fast. Oh, I like is that an airplane or a helicopter? And did you make that?
It's Legos.
Yeah.
It's just I was building a Lego mixer and I was trying to figure out how to make a mixer blade.
So you have a handle right there that you're turning, and that's how you're making that go around. Oh, very clever.
Yeah.
That does look like a mixer blade. In the beginning, I thought it looked kind of like a helicopter blade too, but that would be a good design for a mixer blade. I like it. Very clever. Thank you for sharing that. Hi, Amber. It's good to have you with us. Now I guess you get to talk because you're unmuted.
I don't know. I'm just listening to all of this. You know, the concept of holding space is kind of a new one to me. So I've made a note, you know, to go and find Brooke Snow and listen to that and learn more about it. I was thinking earlier, you know, when you mentioned that the topic this month is history, we've been we've been studying the Constitution, and through that we've been able to listen to several biographies, audio biographies of different people. Cage, he's over there spouting all of the ones that we've listened to, you know, all of the different people. And it's been so fascinating to me to learn things that I didn't know about some of these people who played a prominent role in the foundation of our country, and really what good, honest, outstanding individuals that they were, and the qualities that they held as individuals, not just, you know, in the ideals of establishing a society, but just the one thing that I've noticed between all of them is that they all worked on themselves, and they all worked on gaining qualities that were I can't think of the word, that were righteous qualities, that were characteristics. There we go. That's what I was looking for, is really good characteristics of integrity, and just for themselves as individuals. It wasn't that they were aspiring to a place of honor, but it was something that they did for themselves. And as a result, you know, they were able to establish things for our country that a pattern, you know, that established where we are, the Constitution and things. So anyways, that was what came to mind when you mentioned history.
No, I love it. And isn't it fun to get involved and start learning about other people and things that they did, or their difficult circumstances and how they handled something? Or like you said, so many of these people had even lists of things they were working on to improve themselves. You know, like is it George Washington had the 13 rules of civility, and Benjamin Franklin had his rules, the things that he was working on to perfect and refine himself.
Yeah, definitely. And it made me think of the goal setting program, you know, of the church and for the youth right now. And it made me think of a lot of those things fell into those same characteristics. And I just thought, okay, yeah, we're getting back to where we should be. That's what we need to be teaching our kids. That's what we need to be doing ourselves, is really, and as a society, working on ourselves, and, you know, and really trying to be good people. And if we are good people, then it trickles into everything else.
Right. And this is that, you know, working from inside out, you know, changing the inside, and then having that be that bless, you know, the things around us. But yeah, I love that. I love to see in any time where there are any organizations who are doing things like setting goals, you know, and teaching us how to do those things and work on ourselves. I love that. And that used to be such a common thing, and it's not so much anymore. Linnell.
I have been thinking about this word change a lot. And when Mary was talking, I was thinking about how important it is for us to get into a space that we can invite our children to. And that takes learning on our part. How do I get to a space that is inviting? How do I calm myself or exude a vibration that is desirable? Or like Amber was talking about, these qualities and these characteristics that are virtuous and good, so that our children want to be near us. And I feel like lately I've been experiencing a lot more of these opportunities to change. I think we always have opportunities to change, right? But sometimes for one reason or another, we just are more comfortable where we're at. And I found that for myself. I'm more comfortable. It's hard to change. It's uncomfortable to change. It can be a real challenge, but I've had this desire to be changing more. So I feel really passionate about personal improvement, about change, and about becoming better. And just one experience I had this morning where I recognized my ability to influence my children and to invite them to change. Again, it was just, we invite the children to help us do chores around the house and to clean up after breakfast. And one of my sons was really not feeling it. He was dreading it and he didn't want to. I could see it in his face and his movements. He just wasn't willing. And all the time, like in the past, I've always just made them do it anyways. But I wanted to change. If you don't change something, nothing changes. And so if he's going to be upset and grumpy and take forever, and that's not what I'm aiming for. I don't want to just force him to do housework. And so I had to think, okay, how can I change this experience in this moment? What can I do to influence this? And so I did something different that I never do. And that's part of this change that I'm working on, is that I just acknowledged that he was not feeling willing in that moment. And I asked him, are you feeling frustrated right now that you have to help me with the table because you helped me clean the bathroom this morning? And you could just see the softness on his face, like, yeah, you understand, you get it. That's exactly what I'm feeling. And so I let him off the hook, which I would never do. I'm like, no, you stay there and you finish. And I asked you to do this, you're going to do this job until it's done. But I gave him the opportunity to just stop. And so I said, okay, you can stop. And I didn't hold him against it. I wasn't guilting him in any way, which I've done in the past as well. And so this time I just completely and freely let him stop doing that. He went and played for a little bit and I told him I would help him. So I went and did the table and I finished it for him and he saw me doing that. And then after I did the table, then I could ask him, all right, now can you help me with the floor? And it was a completely different experience where he was more willing and I didn't have to force him and I gave him a break and I helped him. So it felt good that I tried something new and that it worked. And I think he was able to learn something from that in a much better way and a more lasting impact than if I had forced him to do what I always do. And so finding these moments where I can change, I think produces this momentum in my life where I've experienced this joy and I want to keep seeing this joy. And so I keep practicing that. And I think that's how the momentum builds.
It definitely builds when we experience a positive outcome from that. So then how do you keep it going when some of the outcomes you experience aren't positive? How about that? Because I love what you're doing. I think that's fabulous. And this whole idea of being open to changing ourselves, getting out of that rut, or even out of just the thinking that I'm already so busy, I can't change something, I can't do something different. If I start thinking of personal refinement, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have time for that, and then if you have a negative outcome, do you give up? How do you keep in this idea of feeling positive about your role and your ability to influence those around you, whether they be your children, your spouse, your friends, family, because it's all relationships with other people. Little people, we feel like we can boss them around, but we also learn that's not terribly effective. I'm just curious. As you were talking, I was thinking, that is so good. And that's so interesting. And I love that you talk about recognizing your ability to do this, to be able to change the environment. I think that's so empowering because otherwise we feel that frustration or helplessness. So I think no matter the outcome, I just was kind of trying to go back to last week, what you said yourself, Linnell. I loved that you said, if you have a negative experience, you just take that as data. Okay, so that All right, so we had this outcome, huh? All right, so I'll kind of use that as I move forward. I loved that rather than feeling like, all right, I failed again, that didn't go well. No, all right, so that didn't really work out. I wonder why. What were the factors, that were different in that? I don't know. Or is that overwhelming to a mom? Sarah?
I was just thinking about, so this entire conversation I've been thinking like, okay, I understand my role, like to influence the atmosphere in my home and like in this verbiage of this conversation to hold space. But I don't get how to do that for myself. Like I need to be centered myself in order to provide that. And so how do I become centered? And then I was thinking about, well, maybe I just need somebody else to hold space, to be like my bookend. And then I was thinking, well, how the heck do I get somebody to hold space for me? And I realized that I think that's what these conversations are for me with the Mothers of Influence groups, is it's just like a space for me to come and be centered. And I wonder if there are more practices that I can adopt that allow me to connect with other people in that way and maintain my centeredness when at home I'm just one mom. Like there aren't three of us, thank goodness. We don't practice polygamy. But that does mean that I'm the only one that has that type of a nurturing role in my home. And so anyway, when we connect with each other, that helps give us strength. And I just was thinking about that as everybody else was talking.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I love that there are comments put over here. Before you started, I put who holds space for me, because that's the question that comes up, right? And then I find space for me through prayer. Emily said, absolutely, absolutely. Ida, just coming back to that, they're just data, time to regroup and try something else. So that idea of kind of looking at a situation and going, all right, let's just, I love that physical step back, gain a wider perspective, and we have physical and spiritual tools to help us through this. And I agree that the connection with each other, with a friend, is huge. And it helps us to not feel alone when we're going through something, because we've got somebody that we could go to and talk about it and share our experience, and kind of even if we just want to share and get that out, or if we actually want to get some good feedback and see if somebody else has some ideas for us, something that could help or bring us back to a better place. Ida, I feel like how I approach my children can either create a spirit of rebellion or an invitation to connect. Don't you love that word, invitation? I've been thinking about that a lot lately. That changes the way the relationship feels if you're inviting somebody rather than telling them. But Sarah, were you going to share?
Oh, no, sorry. I forgot to unmute, and then I was talking to my baby.
No. Oh, it was the sweetest thing. I mean, I couldn't hear what you were saying, even though it was so quiet, but I just thought out of respect for you, I would mute that. So
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have to tell you that this week, going through my little mini, crisis, it was so wonderful to be able to just pop on Marco Polo and share what I was going through with a group of friends. So I didn't feel so alone as I was stranded in the desert, for 8 hours anyway. But and it was just good to know that, and then to get back, some positive comments and just kind of, sorry, we're praying for you, whatever it was just good. And it helped me be a better person and have a better experience. Even if I couldn't have messaged anybody, I think of you ladies and I feel supported. Does that make sense? Does that seem silly? I feel supported just in my everyday, knowing that you are out there. I feel that kind of support, like, okay, I can do this. I can get through this. I hope that you can turn to that kind of a feeling. It doesn't solve all the problems. I'm not suggesting that, but not being alone and knowing that you have people that you can talk to, I think it really does help. I know this place here is a safe place. I know that there are women who come here that we never, ever see because they only watch the recordings. But every once in a while, they'll reach out and share something with me. And it was something one of you said, or an interaction between a few different women, and them feeling that could come, that this relationship that they could have in their lives gives them hope and helps them move forward. So it helps me see what a gift this kind of connection is. Yeah, we've got a lot of shared experiences, but we've also been open with each other in a way that has helped us have more real connections. And so I hope you're learning that's one of the ways to help develop other real relationships, maybe in your physical surroundings, is being genuine, being vulnerable, opening up to people around you. And that makes a difference. Mary. Mary, if you're trying to talk right now, we cannot hear you. So I'm going to put you back on mute. Oh, it looks like I can't.
Could I maybe share a thought?
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
So I was originally one of the YouTube watchers for at least a couple of months before I actually made the time to hop on Fridays. And then also being part of the Marco Polo group. And it was really meaningful to be able to watch those conversations and feel like I was part of it. And so I've been participating on these Fridays and on Marco Polo, and I've tried I've tried to get together a Mothers of Influence group in my community. There's one that already meets, but it meets in the evenings and it just doesn't work for me and my schedule. So I've been trying without much success to gather up a few other women to meet in the mornings too. So I feel like that was a big flop, but these interactions have kind of trained me to communicate with the people in my family even in a different way, and to be more open. And I don't really know how to describe it, but just open and centered and curious and mindful and aware. All of those things rolled into one, that these conversations have been valuable to me for that. And so I just wanted to, piggyback of what Lori was saying about how this is a safe space, and I'm really grateful for it.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate those thoughts. And I loved the words you used, saying that it's helped you to become open, centered, curious, mindful. Those are very big words, very significant. If you think about each one of them on their own, being open, that's huge in relationships. That can change things so much. And that's not a common thing you see. If you just think about the relationships around you, those that you're close enough to see, how many of them are open? Being centered, that's huge. That idea of being centered, grounded, focused, however you want to use that, in whatever way you want to say that, that is very powerful. Curious, I love that. I love that, especially, right after this month of studying imagination, this idea of being curious and finding wonder, around you in everything, anything. I love that. And then being mindful. That to me has its own definitions and meanings. I'm sure it does for each one of you too. But just being mindful of yourself, of the world around you, your tiny world around you, and then, outside of that. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, now who's talking over here in the chat? Who's this coming from? Ida, are you able to share that, sweetie? Or do you want me to read it? You want me to read it? Okay. Yesterday, I had an experience where we were dividing into groups. One of my children was complaining loudly about not wanting to be partners with a few of their siblings. Oh, that's so hard. I can see why you're not. Okay, I really was hurt by her comments, and so I reacted very negatively, and she wanted to rebel against what I was saying because she didn't like being called out in front of everyone, and I was not very nice. Human, right? But we just beat ourselves up about that. So I took a moment to collect myself, and then I decided to talk to her again privately. I apologized for what I had said in anger. Then I explained that in a nicer way. Oh, and then I explained that in a nicer way, how those comments hurt others and me. And I knew that she understood what it felt like to be left behind or left out or rejected by others who should care about you. I didn't want her to ever feel that way from me, and I didn't want anyone in our family to feel that way. It was a much more inspired conversation. Yeah, sometimes, I look back on so many experiences with my children, and I feel like so often all it takes is for us to take a moment, but it's just so hard in the moment to pause before we react. It's so hard, and we're human. But yeah, I agree with Linnell. That was so brave of you to apologize and try again. You are amazing, Ida. Glad the second try felt so much better. Yeah. And Ida, as it says, as I make space for myself through prayer, pondering, trying to be in tune more, I have the inspiration and wisdom to make space for others and humble myself. Yeah, that humbling of ourselves, that's the key so often, is being able to just go, oh man, that was bad. I behaved so badly. All right, how can I get out of this gracefully? Oh, there's no way. All right, how do I just say, all right, I'm so sorry. That was bad. Can we try it again? So often just that phrase, can we try that again? I'm sorry, can we try that again? Is so incredibly helpful in any relationship, even with yourself. So you do something that you just inside, and you just tell yourself, I'm sorry. Can we try that again? And just show grace in all your relationships. It just is so incredibly helpful. I love that, Ida. Thank you for sharing. We're never going to be perfect in our relationships. We're never going to have it all figured out and do it all right. I feel like there's just supposed to be so much more grace, forgiveness, and love in this whole experience. It is not supposed to be this thing where we are forever feeling like we're failing, like we're behind, like we are less than. Do you ever want your kids to feel that way? Well, I'm not going to say do you ever, but in your good moments, do you want your kids to feel that way? You never do. Do you want your really good, dear friends to feel like they're not measuring up, they're failing, they're worthless, no, never. And our Heavenly Father never wants us to feel that way. That is just not the intention and not the plan. So I think having friends, having these real connections with other mothers, with other women, mothers being that, anyone who nurtures, right? That very open, beautiful definition. But having these others in our circles where we feel the connection and we feel that real support is so helpful. Yeah, Ida.
Yes. Yesterday I was at this it was a long day because we were driving kids all over and I was running errands, and and the end of the day I was just like, ah. And I was sitting there at the church, and I'd just taken my oldest to seminary, and the younger two were just chilling with me. And I was like, I'm just gonna like take a nap in the car because I just don't have the energy to like talk to anybody right now. But it was so kind of cute. The two of the girls were like, hey mom, Bradley's mom is over there. She's your friend. And I was like, yeah, she's on the phone. It's fine. And they're like, no, mom, come talk to her. She'll be off the phone soon. And they kind of dragged me into the church to like talk to her. And it was kind of cute to me because in the past they're like, mom, like when I'm trying to talk to somebody or have a conversation, like in my face, not just like all the kids, right? But they realized that I think was something that helped me feel happier, right? Just connecting with a friend and having a conversation. And they were like, go talk to her, go. And so they were just walking around and doing their thing. And I thought that was so cute. And it made me think that they recognize that and that I recognize it too. And like, I went and had a conversation with her while I was waiting, and we had a great conversation. And I walked away feeling lifted, and solidarity and, just like strength, right? From being able to talk to somebody who is another mother, and similar experiences in life, or just understanding, and that's so powerful. And I think that's a huge part of being able to talk with you ladies too, like understanding and that support and strength that you feel like when you're like, okay, it was a hard day and I didn't do very good, but I can start over. We can all start over, or just whatever is going on, So anyways, that was kind of a cute experience about connecting and them recognizing how important it was.
Right. I think that's so very tender and sweet that they recognized that connecting with a friend makes mom happier. And so they worked to make that happen. And then they weren't right there at your elbow, interrupting you through the conversation. They let you have that conversation that you needed. And it reminds me of Lindsay Watkins in the beginning of our discussions. Her husband would help make time for her on Fridays to be able to be here for this call, because there was something about that he noticed that she got from the experience from being able to be here. So I think that's really interesting. Yeah. We got a heart from Lindsay. Okay, then Linnell. Linnell, can you share that?
Sure. I was just telling Ida that my husband did the same thing to me. We went to the park and he said, go talk to that mom over there. She's sitting by herself. And he kept teasing me, come on, hurry up, go talk to her. He knows that I enjoy talking to others and I like making friends. But she was on her phone scrolling. 1 second, Edie, please. She was on her phone scrolling and she had a dog on a leash that was barking at every other dog. So I told her, no, she has a dog and she might not like me, might bite me. And so I never went. And so I'm grateful for your example, Ida, so that next time I go to the park, I can do the same thing, be like you and go talk to my friends or a new person.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. The dog would have scared me too anyway. And then Sarah said, Ida, that reminds me of Lindsay's experience with getting the kids to play the game. Sometimes you just need a little push to get started. Just a loving invitation. And yeah, Lindsay, no worries. It's okay that you can't come on camera today. Yeah, it does. It does. And Ida said it enriches her to connect with others. It does me too. I didn't realize how much this would benefit my life, but it is such a blessing. I mean, it takes hours in my week to do different things, to either preparing for this, actually having the discussion, then doing the editing and everything, but it is so worth it. I wouldn't change anything. I love being able to have these opportunities to connect. And just to make sure everybody knows, I am caught up. So all of the recordings, 5 months worth of recordings I did in 2 days and got them all online. So I feel so bad for all the women who were watching online. And I'm sure some of them have dropped because, they would check every week and nothing was there. But now they're all caught up. So there are wonderful, beautiful conversations there. As I just was during the editing time, as I saw little bits and pieces, I thought, oh my goodness, that's right. Oh, I remember that one. Oh, that was so beautiful. Just the thoughts that were shared, the connections that were made. So if you have friends that you're trying to connect with, or even Sarah, your group that you're trying to start in the mornings, maybe feed them a few of those recordings from the YouTube channel. And just not, obviously, I never promote myself. That is just not something I'm comfortable with. I mean, look, I'm leaning back even saying that. I'm just like, no, okay. But It's not me, it's you guys. It's the conversations, it's the connections. And women just, oh, they hunger for that. Have you seen just around you right now in the world, there are so many of us who are depleted. Again, I tell you, I love that word. It's such a beautiful example. And we go through that, it's just kind of a cycle. But there are so many who don't know what to do to change that. They don't have any of the tools to change that. And they don't have a connection with somebody that's real. They may have a whole bunch of connections, but not any of those that are genuine, that are truly feeding their hearts and helping them to feel supported and buoyed up. There are so many opportunities for each one of us to be brave and share what we are learning with others. And I'm seeing the value, because I was wondering, why do we have these on YouTube? Why are we making these recordings? And why am I putting these out there? That's why, because women get a glimpse of what is possible. And we've talked about it, how we never thought that that these kinds of real connections could be. You could talk about real things that matter, things of the heart, and things that help move us forward. And we've talked about how, in our experience of using Well-Educated Heart, this pattern of learning, how it has changed how we see the world around us, how we view everything. And I'm a much kinder, softer, more open person in all of my relationships, and in how I respond to situations. My responses are very different. And I attribute it all to these two things, to Well-Educated Heart and Mothers of Influence, these things that I'm learning and practicing. And it's huge. And I see that in a lot of you, or you have shared those ideas or those thoughts and feelings. So it's really a beautiful thing. I'm really grateful for what I've learned, and I hope you're seeing the ways that these things can help you in your lives. I mean, I know that, I can see it as you talk about it in these conversations. But I love that you've been here today. I'd love to, if there's anybody else who has something else they want to share before we go to, I don't know why I'm doing that, before we go to Linnell. So, yeah, Amber.
So I keep thinking about this word invitation and what a powerful impact it can have, just an invitation. I had an experience with my son and piano lessons, of all things. So he got to a point where it was time for him to transition from a music program to piano lessons. And he was really struggling, to where practice was a fight, getting out the door to his class was a fight, and I just wasn't quite sure what to do. And then an opening came up with the piano teacher that we wanted to place him with, and he just was like, nope, I'm done. And knowing what a valuable thing it was, I wasn't quite sure how to approach that, because I didn't want it to be a sore spot in our relationship. I didn't want it to be this constant fight. And so I had a conversation with his current teacher and with the new one, and came to the conclusion that, and prayed about it. And the inspiration that I got was that it needed to be his decision. And he's 8 years old now, but I thought, okay, that's a big thing to leave in the hand of an 8-year-old, but I trusted, and I told him, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to meet the new one, and you're going to talk to your current teacher about this. And then once you have all of the information, then you get to choose. And I told him it was going to be his choice, and whatever he decided would be fine. And so we did, and we went and we met with both teachers. And before he even met with his current teacher, he had already met with the new one, and she had a wonderful conversation with him. Nothing about piano at all, just built a connection with him, asked him about his interests, talked to him about experiences that she had had, and he came away with it. And 2 days later, he said to me, Mom, I think I'm going to continue. I'm going to switch over and take piano lessons. And it was that invitation and allowing him to make his own decision, and the connection that he had, that she made with him. All of those things just came together, and it was a really great experience.
I love that. That is such a beautiful story. I love that the whole everything that you did, all the different points along there, you know, the thinking about it, worrying about it, praying about it, getting the answer, being brave enough to move forward with that answer. And then how wonderful that that new piano teacher, you know, was blessed to know that what she needed to do was make a connection with him. And then for him to have that positive response. And it makes all the difference when our kids are able to make the decision. And but that's a brave thing to do as a parent.
And practice hasn't been an issue at all now. He sits down and he does it all on his own, because he owned it. He made this decision, and it's his. And we go out the door, and he looks forward to it, and he sits down and he practices, and it's all on him. It's not me forcing him.
Yeah, I love that, Amber. Thank you for sharing that. And Ida put some notes in the comments that are great too. She said, I like helping them through that process a little by helping them get all the information before making a decision. And when they get to make these decisions at home in a safe place and they get to practice there, what a gift we're giving them. Great tools. I love that. Thank you for sharing, Amber and Ida. Okay, moms, we're going to turn over to Linnell for a wrap up. And then if anybody wants to stay, if anybody wants to, you know, feels like I feel strongly that I have this comment to make, know that you always can do that. But we do go to Linnell for a summary kind of what we've been talking about, and maybe a wrap up kind of a thought. So Linnell.
I really appreciated that story, Amber. It was really sweet. And I think it illustrates a lot of really important principles. One of which is giving them the freedom to choose and to learn. And that autonomy really helps them feel empowered, and they can grow. And throughout this conversation, I keep coming back to Sarah's question. She said, who do I go to? Who holds space for me? I think that was her question. Who holds space for me? And I think that's the biggest question of the day, because we talk about mother hearts and we talk about our role as mothers. And if we're not centered, then where are we going to bring our children, right? And so I've been thinking about being centered, about who holds space for me, about an anchor. And something that Amber illustrated in her story is that she sought inspiration. And I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that he can be my anchor. I believe he is the source of all truth and inspiration. And so when I think of change, when I think of repentance, I think of not only changing my behavior and changing my nature, but turning to Jesus Christ, turning to him. And that is the change that I make. When I turn to him, when I allow him to hold space for me, when I seek him for inspiration and truth, then I can be centered. And then I can have confidence that I'm bringing my children to the Savior as well. And if I don't have my eyes fixed on the Savior, if I don't have my heart centered on the Savior, then really there's no guarantee that our children will find that safety in such a tumultuous world with all the turmoil that surrounds them. And so I'll be thinking about that this week, this idea of holding space and inviting my children to practice the same thing. I think they're learning the same skills as well alongside us. And so I think it's good that we can learn alongside them. We're not only learning like poetry and story and music alongside them, we can learn how to change and how to be better, how to be gentle, and how to say sorry, how to try again. And I think all of these things help fill our hearts.
I love that. Thank you so much, Linnell. And I too believe in Jesus Christ. And that for me is my main center and anchor. And it makes all the difference. When my focus is there, I do a better job. I don't feel completely lost when everything falls apart. So that is a good thing. It doesn't mean you don't fall apart. It doesn't mean that things don't go wrong. It just means that you're not completely turned upside down by it. So anyway, I'm going to stay for a few minutes afterwards so we can talk about a few other things. And for those of you who can stay, we'll do that. Linnell, I don't know if you have the opportunity to stay and talk a little bit about your Mothers of Influence group that you translated in. If you do, great. If you don't, we can do it on Marco Polo. But I'd love to hear an update about how that went. Also, I was just gonna, I don't know, let's see if anybody else had other things that they wanted to talk about. So we'll do that. We'll stay, but in order to wrap up this part of our recording so that we can make it stay right about an hour, we'll go ahead and say goodbye. I hope that those of you who were here felt some connection, felt lifted, felt supported. I think that is a big part of why we're here, and it's a beautiful thing, and I appreciate all of you being here.